Most business owners aren't struggling because they lack ambition. They're struggling because their revenue depends on constant intensity instead of consistent action. They sprint, they push, they launch, they hustle, and then they burn out or their revenue dips and they feel like they have to create another big push just to keep things moving. But what if growth didn't have to feel so dramatic? What if it didn't have to feel so chaotic, if you like? What if it could be a little bit more predictable? Welcome back to the podcast, Profits Unleashed podcast, where we explore how coaches, consultants, business owners can actually grow sustainably through smarter strategy, stronger positioning, and systems that actually work. Now, I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today I'm joined by Bradley Koch, a small business coach who helps entrepreneurs generate what he calls boring profit. And honestly, that might be one of my favorite phrases ever, because boring profit means steady, reliable revenue. It means, less emergencies, if you like, less emotional roller coasters, fewer months where you're wondering, where is the next client going to come from? Bradley focuses on something that he calls compounding action. The idea that small, focused, repeatable behaviors done consistently create exponential long-term growth instead of chasing the next breakthrough. Look, we've all done it. He helps business owners build that quiet momentum. So in this episode, we're unpacking why most entrepreneurs unknowingly sabotage their own consistency, why intensity can be addictive, and how to shift from reactive growth to strategic accumulation. So if your income swings month to month, if you feel like you're always on just to keep things afloat, or if you're just tired of reinventing your business every single quarter, this conversation might completely change how you think about growth. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Karen.
Awesome. So look, let's go back a little bit of your story. What was happening in your own business when you realized that intensity wasn't actually sustainable?
Yeah, anybody that's ever tried to do something on their own, I think, has run into this. We live in a hustle culture today. And if you spend any time on social media, if you take courses, if you watch YouTube, there is hustle bros and hustle gals that are out there just pushing this constant thing. But we know when we put our head on the pillow at night, there's a cost to that. And I was feeling that cost just like everyone else, stressed out. I may hit some short term goals, but eventually I would take 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. And then my coach at the time had suggested taking a little different approach, and he equated it to compounding interest, the way that your money grows in the stock market, and how you can invest small amounts consistently over time and have huge, just big swings in wealth. And so I looked at, how do I do that in my business? How do I do that in my day to day? And that's the path that I've been going down.
Love that. But it's funny that even you mentioned the trouble is, for some, it would seem like it's boring. It's boring action, being consistent. So for you, was there an actual moment where you thought there really has to be a better way through this drama, if you like? So when you found your coach, how did you feel about switching from this always looking for, everybody's looking for, they've got shiny object syndrome, haven't they? The latest, the next big thing. So what was going on with you?
I think for me, I was in that cycle of consuming information, trying to figure out or engineer what the next thing was. But the principle that I was missing is this taking small steps and taking action being the key word. And so sitting in there, going through sign up after sign up and spending $20 here, $100 here on all these different courses, looking for some magic that would continue my path in my journey, but give me more consistency. I was missing a key ingredient that every day there had to be action. And I think if my wife were on here, she would probably say that she was a great influencer in me switching that mental thinking. I know we'll get into it, but there's a story when it's appropriate to talk. I don't know if it's a story, it's one of those things that are handed down, but it's a cute little illustration of how powerful little actions over time can generate huge things. And once I
Mm.
heard that story and I put it in line with what I was doing, that's when the lights went on.
Look, and when we see it all the time, and I'm sure you might feel the same, there's this intensity trap, if you like, happens when people get out there and start podcast guesting, because where people, they'll go hard for a few weeks and then they disappear. Or the same if they're launching a podcast, same thing. The stats are so true. People don't last because they're going for instant gratification and they're not seeing the long-term value. And what you shared about compounding, it's a very powerful word, and I don't think people really understand the true power of this. So for you though, how do you help people do this? Do you have a specific process when they come to you?
So a lot of it depends on where they're sitting today. So what is life? What is their business like today? And I'll give you an example of just someone that owns a brick and mortar store or a mechanic that owns an automobile garage. They start their business because they were good at turning a wrench. They had a skill, they were able to charge for it, and now it grew and demand increased. They had to hire another mechanic. Demand increased. They needed to buy parts. And pretty soon you close your eyes, and 5 years later, the owner is still underneath cars turning wrenches. He's still in that I have to do everything. The business rises and falls with me. I can't stop because the business will die mentality. In connected in that is this 1% better. So in that scenario, it's first of all, what does good look like for them? Good for them through my eyes isn't important. So we have to do a recalibration. That would be step one. What does good look like? And then what are the levers that you can pull in your life and in your business to get you going directionally correct? I think a mistake that a lot of people make is we try and find the exact direction, the exact compass heading that we need to go. And oftentimes we don't know that yet. We haven't gone down the journey. That's why I say directionally correct. So, do we want to go southeast? Do we want to go northwest? Let's just get a ballpark, because once we start moving, we're going to figure a lot of things out. That would be step two. And then it's identify the levers that we can pull. There's a lot of things we can do. And the hustle culture talks about do this, do that, do this, track this, and optimize this, and algorithms. And let's take a step back. Just what can you do on a daily basis that's going to move you in that direction? And let's quiet everything else. And so, depending on who or the type of business, we'll start to get into specifics for them and help them identify what a calmer focus on
Mm.
one thing looks like for them. But everybody starts at the same place. We have to identify what good looks like. We have to identify what levers they have available to them. And then here's a trap that I'll share that people fall into. When we start something new, I found, because this was the case for me, we always have the most energy and the most excitement and the most endurance in the very, very beginning. And so teaching somebody to only move at a snail's pace in the beginning can be painful to folks. And saying at a snail's pace is really not fair to what this is. They're used to these big things. Like you said earlier, I got to feel like I'm working both ends of the candle. I have to feel like this, or what am I even doing? And that's the hardest part, is the easiest part. So in the beginning, if we're moving 1% closer to that, what good looks like, they may have the energy and the capacity to move 20%. The problem is, the trap they fall into is they move the 20%, but as you go down the journey, it gets harder and harder. So pretty soon they might only be able to move 2, 3, 4, 5%. And to them, that's failure, right? Hit a wall. They don't know how to get past it. So they scrap it, they redo it, they take time off. And then you have this kind of up and down circle. Whereas if you train yourself when it's easy to be okay, taking consistent small action that compounds, by the time you get to that sticking point, you will be so far past where you were if you felt like you had to have big wins. You're just mentally, emotionally prepared for it. And I heard somebody say this, and I can't remember word for word how they said it, but maybe it was Alex Harmozy. But basically, if you looked at a graph, most entrepreneurs, they quit right before the big win, right before their business takes off. And for me, that lines up with what I see. It's that moment where they've had a couple of big wins. Now it's tougher. Now I feel I'm a failure, or I got to scrap it. I got to do something different.
What I'm taking from what you've just shared there is a lot of, we can be very hard on ourselves. And so you're right. If you go out, yes, we all get excited at the beginning. And it is when you start your day. If you've got 20 things on the list of things that you've got to do that day, and you only do 3 of them, like you say, you feel like a failure. Whereas if you only wrote the 3 most important things that you had to do that day and you cross them off, the same things happen, but you feel a lot more, you've been successful.
Right.
We're too hard on ourselves. And yes, it makes a lot of sense that, do lower that list, reduce that number back, and so that it is consistent. But let's go back to the power of what you're talking about, is the power of compounding. So what does compounding action actually look like on a weekly basis if somebody is taking smaller amount of actions on a daily?
I'll interject that story, and I think
Yeah.
maybe this will paint the picture. It's a fable, or it's something. There's a father, and he's got a daughter and a son, and he gives the son, the oldest, the first option. Says, "Would you want $1 million or this magic purse that has a penny in it that doubles every day for 30 days?" Sounds like, I want 1 million. Sure enough. So he gives the son $1 million. The daughter gets this coin bag that's got a penny in it. And right away, tomorrow wakes up, the kid has got $1 million minus the cost of a Lambo. He probably went out and bought some big things. And his sister's got 2 pennies. So another few days go by, and he's got a whole new wardrobe. Maybe he's even got another car. She's got 20 pennies by that point. You get to the end of the 30 days, he's had $1 million and consumed it however he's consumed it. Her purse, the value of her purse is now over $5 million. Now, that's an extreme example because that's about doubling your effort every day. And that's not be great if we could all do that. But
Wouldn't
basically
it?
that just illustrates that when you improve today, tomorrow you're starting from a baseline that's higher. And then you improve tomorrow, the next day is starting from a baseline that's higher. And so eventually these little wins stack on top of each other. So you're always starting from a point that's bigger than yesterday. When we
Mm.
try and climb a mountain, we take a bunch of little steps. If we try and jump up the hill, we may or may not get there, but there's a very good chance we're going backwards quite a bit, or we may fall altogether. So getting back to what is the thing that they have to do, what is the lever to get where they want to go, and then what does 1% look better, or what does 1% better look like, or 5%, or something that is easy to understand, easy to see, easy to measure, and I can go to bed saying, yeah, I did it. Like a runner. And let me pause for a second and say everything I'm talking about is about change. You can apply this idea to anything. You want to lose weight, you want to be more social, you want to whatever. You want to volunteer more. All this is about changing behavior and habits ultimately. And so a runner, someone might decide, hey, I want to run. So if they get on their shoes and they go out and they try and run a mile today, they may make it, but they may be so beat up that tomorrow, they screw it, man. I'm not even going out. I got to wait for my body to catch up. But if their plan on day one was just to put the shoes near the bed, check, easy. Oh my gosh, that's too easy. But if you train yourself that that's the mentality, that it's little incremental wins, the next day they actually have the shoes on and they go downstairs and they stretch. The next day, and pretty soon, these things just start building, and you can get to the place where you can really start doubling your effort. And
Awesome.
when you have tough days, you're just at that mentality of small wins. You don't have to kill it in one day.
And for most businesses that are looking for more clients, more business, what is one small behavior then that seems insignificant but compounds massively?
I would say, as a generic answer, so if your business is not foot traffic or brick and mortar businesses, if it is internet online based, it's about visibility. And today on the internet, that could mean a lot of things. That could mean doing ads, that could mean doing podcasts, that could mean posting on social media. From what I understand the world, like as a meta standpoint from social media, is all the algorithms, that was tough for me to say, they reward consistency. They reward doing something a lot of times, not necessarily one big, huge thing, but a lot of times. And so, the one thing I think all businesses, whether you're physically local or you're available to the world, is whatever that means for you, show up consistently.
Mm.
I think that one thing applied to whatever the relevant path for your business is a game changer.
Yeah, 100%. And also for you, how do you think you still need that sort of authority infrastructure in place, a clear offer, positioning, and follow up before you even start to amplify visibility, if you like? There's a lot of people that are struggling in business. It's not, especially if they're new, it does take time. But what do you feel is one of the sort of biggest things that is stopping people from having maybe the success they deserve? They've worked hard, but what is the biggest thing that most business owners do? As you said earlier, they tend to sabotage this consistent effort. And why do you think that is?
I think it just goes back to, I'll say friction, I'll say confusion, my personal opinion is most of the businesses that I talk to and that I'm hired to help don't have a true North Star. They're just chasing dollars. Let me see if I can come up with a silly example, but that understanding what good looks like is got to be the baseline. If they haven't had that clarity, then those are the business owners that are spending a month focusing on YouTube because someone said YouTube is a great path. They got business because of it. And then they jump on to Podmatch and then they jump on to something else. But if they had a North Star and that was part of their offer, so their offer focused on delivering that North Star, if their messaging followed that North Star, if the path, the channel that they used was a channel that got them to that North Star, I think the path becomes easier. The problem is using your words, a great word, sabotage. We sabotage ourselves because we're skipping that first step of what am I trying to do? And what will good look like to me? How do I even know what that looks like? And early on, most people translate good as, hey, I just need revenue. Like, Brad, all this is like hooey pooey stuff. I just need cash coming in the door. And they're willing to forego that bigger thing to get that. And the problem is we never circle back to it. Once cash starts coming in, you just move on to the next thing that brings you cash. So if I could inject one thing into everyone, it's you got to understand what it is you're trying to do with your business, whatever your business is, side hustle, main job. Define it clear, and it will pay tenfold. Your ability to talk about what you do, why you do it, your offer will be clear, won't be confusing. I would start there.
So what I'm hearing from that is really, in a way, it's going back to your why. If you do not have a strong enough why you're doing it, that North Star, you've got to have clarity because otherwise, nothing good comes from confusion, right? And you're not going to stay consistent with taking those daily actions. So, look, if someone started compounding today, what could their business realistically look like 12 months from now?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I can give you an example, but the answer is it really depends on their business. If their business is low ticket and that's all they do, the answer to that question is going to look different than somebody else that has a high ticket, average order value, etc. But in the world of pest control, so I worked with a company, again, a local company, but pest control, and they were really doing this spray and pray way of marketing and messaging. It was just, hey, get out. Instead, we found the one thing they could say that no one else could say. And that's what they hung their hat on. And it wasn't even 12 months, it was about 6 months that their business, their revenue had increased 70%, 60%, somewhere in there. It wasn't double, but it was getting close to doubling. But for them, because that's a business that has real fixed costs. They have chemicals, they have trucks, they have an office, they've got overhead. Because they were getting laser focused, their profitability went up too. And I
that's
love
the bottom
profit.
line.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's hidden.
line.
We hear of people,
Yeah.
they've taken this they've done this month, and you think, yeah, what was spent on advertising, what was spent with affiliates, or what was spent of normal expenses. It's not always the whole story. You're talking about profit. Who
No,
doesn't want that? So if someone
right.
listening feels maybe a little bit called out right now, maybe they're a little bit aware that they have been chasing all these shiny objects and they do put a lot of effort in and then hit that roadblock and stop. So what would you see the first action that they should take this week? If they wanted to come and find out a little bit more about how you can help, what should they do?
The action they should take this week, if they feel like they're chasing shiny objects, is to go back and get clear on that North Star. So take 2 steps back, unplug everything, go back to being centered. Why did I even start this business? What is it? And then, and only then, I think the path forward starts to show itself, right? Like we talked about. Then you'll see the levers, then you'll choose, and then you'll define what good looks like. For me, if people want to get in touch with me, there's a book that I wrote called Profitable Pathways. And in there, it is, I don't know, there's 10 or 12 different things that businesses can do to increase their profit. And none of it is accounting based. It's all messaging, offer, bundling, different ways to package. And there's some great case studies in that. And if you're interested, once you have a look at it, my contact information is inside the book. Yeah, that's a simple one. I love it.
Fantastic. And guys, if you're out and about, don't worry, Brad's details will be in the show notes. So look, imagine a year from now, instead of scrambling for clients, your revenue is feeling steady. Your audience knows what you stand for. Maybe you're doing guest appearances, right? Driving leads because you set with strong foundation. That is what compounding action can actually do for you. So yeah, Brad, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking to somebody who, this is, although it's not something new, the problem is people aren't doing it, right? They're not doing it. Yeah, if you're interested, then please go and check out with Brad. And guys, to the rest of you, if you're still thinking about guesting on podcasts as one of the ways to grow your business, as long as you add Brad's advice to that and do it actually consistently, podcasting can be a breakthrough strategy for you. And it could be a compounding one, right? If you want to know more, and you want to know how to show up as such a superstar as Brad just did, with sharing lots of stories, doing it in a way that is going to resonate with the audience, then go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free, as this is my 4-part mini course. And if you actually take action on it, then you will get access to my automated sales process, which is normally part of my 5K offer. And the only way you can get it is by actually taking action. So check it out. The link is in the show notes, and I will be back next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're